Aloha and welcome to Thoughts On. I'm Matthew Salanoa, and this is my podcast where I just talk about whatever subject I feel like talking about. Not necessarily related to movies, but probably most of the time will be related to movies. So, today I got a bit of a tough cookie to chew on for what may be my first episode. We'll see. This one, I'll be dipping into some politics, so if you don't want to hear about politics, believe me, I don't either. In general, my channel is a non-political channel. That's why you will not hear me endorsing any political candidate ever on this show. However, I will be dipping into politics because I'm a filmmaker. I love movies. And most recently, I saw Mickey 17 in theaters. This was the director of Parasite, which I loved Parasite. That was an excellent film. If you haven't checked out Parasite, it's a Korean film about a family, all of whom are looking for work, and they're all living together. The children are adults, yet they're all struggling in South Korea to find work. They live in a terrible part of town. And one of them ends up getting lucky and getting to work as a contractor for a very wealthy family. And slowly over the course of the movie, this family gets the rest of their siblings and relatives employed by the same family while pretending that they're not related. And yet, because of all their various experiences, they are mostly qualified for the things they're doing, except then they start to push it when they start getting family members hired who actually are not qualified for anything. And hence the theme of the movie Parasite being, something that sneaks inside of you and slowly feeds off of you. And it's a really great movie, really some wonderful twists and turns. It's very dark, and yet it has some comedy here and there. But the filmmaking is absolutely top-notch. And I would say Mickey 17, if anyone's interested in seeing it, I definitely recommend it. I think it's a really good movie. Actually, I thought Robert Pattinson was great. I've never seen the movie Multiplicity, which stars Michael Keaton, where he clones himself. But I have really enjoyed watching this movie, which I felt was probably referencing Multiplicity a lot. In this movie, Mickey 17, there's a group of people going to space, and they have this whole program called the Expendable Program, where they get one person, Robert Pattinson, to go out and do dangerous things just so that they can experiment on him. And then as soon as he dies, they get the data, and then they have a 3D printer that prints living things. And they print him out again every time he dies, but they have a way of storing his memory. So it's a really fun movie. Steven Yeun is in it. We all love him from Walking Dead. It's Glenn, and he does a fantastic job as Invincible on the show Invincible. Steven Yeun's great. I would say he's not in the movie enough, but it's not really about his character. It's about Mickey 17. Naomi Ackie from Blink Twice, she's in this movie. She's great. Mark Ruffalo, fantastic. And I'm blanking on the actress's name at the moment, but she plays United States of Terra, Hereditary, the mom. I'm blanking on your name right now. I'm sorry. She's in this movie as Mark Ruffalo's wife. She's fantastic. So I think all in all, this is a very fun movie, just as spoiler-free as I can get. You are watching Robert Pattinson die in multiple ways, which is part of the entertainment. But there's a whole story twist where the story goes into a different avenue, which I think it's great. It's actually a really wonderful bit of storytelling that they go in this different direction that has to do with them visiting this planet, and there's another species, and there might be a conflict brewing between our space settlers and this native species. So there's a lot of, just right off the bat, you can imagine there's some really personal themes going on there. And this movie very much, I don't know if there's parallels to Korea, but this movie absolutely has parallels to American history quite blatantly. And one of those parallels being that there's an unquestionable anti-Trump aspect to this movie. Now, I was briefly pro-Trump, very brief, but I'll be honest, I never really thought he should be president. But I know during his first presidency, I knew a lot of people who felt a little happier while he was president, and they were of all different colors of the rainbow. Don't be confused. I know you see my skin color and you've already made a judgment about me. Well, you should be asking yourself why you're spending time on that judgment. So, anyway, Mark Ruffalo, I felt, was wonderful. You know, he was playing this absolute dunce leader of the space expedition. And this is obviously much like the Steve Carell the Steve Carell show, I'm sure. This parody of Trump and his Space Force and all that stuff. There's some parallels there, but literally there's people with red hats who divinely believe in Mark Ruffalo's character. But I felt Mark Ruffalo was kind of doing a mix of Trump and one of my favorite film characters of all time, Jon Lovitz from Mom and Dad Save the World. If you have not seen Mom and Dad Save the World, it is awesome. It is a great movie. I don't even mean it ironically. I know some people will say it's ironically a great movie. It's a great movie. This movie is about again, I'm forgetting the actors' names, but it's the principal from Ferris Bueller. He and his wife are going on a road trip, and they get abducted by aliens. And the aliens are human-like people, except that they're all very stupid. They're all very dumb, gullible, and they are run by an empire led by Jon Lovitz. Tell me, do I look better with mutton chops or a mustache? Mutton chops. That's terrible. Shoot yourself in the head. The guy shoots himself in the head, looks at his twin brother. Tell me, mutton chops or mustache? Mutton chops. And the guy shoots himself in the head. Then Jon Lovitz looks in the mirror. You know, they have a point. So, Jon Lovitz and again, I'm blanking on all the names of this movie, but Mom and Dad Save the World, I believe it's on Prime. Absolutely one of my favorite comedies. It's such a goofball movie. And Jon Lovitz by himself is the reason to see the movie, because he's just such a weird, duncy character. Literally the dumbest of them all, the dumbest and most insecure. And to me, I felt Mark Ruffalo was doing a combination of Trump and the Jon Lovitz character. Maybe I got that wrong. But especially the way he was dressed, I thought, that looks exactly like Jon Lovitz's costume when he tries to be a military leader looking guy. And even the way he held himself, I felt like that's not Trump, that's Jon Lovitz from Mom and Dad Save the World. What the hell? So, I had a good time watching it. But I have to admit, and here's where this Thoughts On podcast gets a little dark, a little moody. I may say some things that offend and maybe really make you feel some negative things. So I'm going to try my best to keep it light as I can. This is a non-political channel for a reason, and hopefully if I do this right, this is the only political episode I ever do. Simply because of this movie, bringing up Trump. I have to admit, during Trump's first campaign, the world was against him. And I mean, I wasn't going to vote for him either. But literally every single comedian, every single comic show, every single piece of media that could possibly come out every single day and every single week was anti Trump. And many spoilers for this movie. It's part of the character's, Mark Ruffalo's character's background. He's a congressman who lost 2 elections. So I'm assuming they're referring to Trump's second run where Biden won. And they must have been expecting Kamala would beat Trump the second time. I'm only assuming. I don't know. I haven't looked at interviews yet. But this is 100% how it reads. So as I'm watching this, all these red hats and Mark Ruffalo doing a very fun SNL version of Trump, I think, damn, like, what I also liked is, just to support Mark Ruffalo, because I'm not trying to slam him with the things I'm going to say, I also like that he also seemed to have a bit of Elvis going on. His hairdo was very Elvis. His stance was very Elvis. You know what I mean? So there was a combination of elements going on with this character where I did feel like he wasn't trying to do purely a one-sided parody, but he was trying to do a very well-rounded parody. I really thought Mark Ruffalo did something really fun with this character. And again, the actress who played his wife, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name. Toni Collette. Toni Collette, I love Toni Collette. All the way back to The Sixth Sense. And Toni Collette, who played his wife, is just delicious in this movie. She's just so much fun. That pairing is just adorable and fun to watch in this movie on another level, even though they're technically the bad guys as the movie goes along. But that being said, here's what I'm going to get to with my point is, this movie, even though I enjoyed it, I had a really good time. At the end of the day, there was still this kind of bitter, not even bittersweet, this bitter sense of this movie just really being an anti-Trump movie. Even though it's about all these other things, and it is about how people treat each other to begin with, which I think the movie has such a well-rounded understanding. This is what I like about this director. The movie has such a well-rounded understanding that human beings are savage people, that on every level of society, whether it's the poor working man or whether it's the wealthy man in charge, people are despicable and take advantage of each other all the way to their last breaths. And it's a miserable aspect of humanity that we must accept is a part of who we are. But nonetheless, the fact that this movie, I felt, was really talking down to Trump supporters and really promoting this image, and maybe it's not intentionally Kamala Harris that they're supposed to be propping up, but it feels that way. You know, the Naomi Ackie character is actually a security official. Kamala Harris was a lawyer, so not exactly a parallel. Trump was a president, not a congressman. Not exactly a parallel. There's enough differences for you to play around with. But at the end of the day, I just felt like, look, you know, and I'm not going to talk about what Trump's doing now. Like I said, I would not have voted for him. But I also wouldn't have voted for the other side. But the fact that we have this movie, we have Megalopolis with the Shia LaBeouf character, you know, which makes us a similar point of someone wealthy who makes people, the working class, believe that they're there for them and actually isn't. And it's always the guy, and it's the red hat or the red tie. It's that Republican person who is against the working man. And right now it's just Trump. But here's what I have to say as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, as a person who consumes all of this media. What I saw from my point of view, going all the way back to Trump's first run for presidency, when you, as a media blitz, choose to go up against someone every single day, every single week, every single month, and you come with this moral superiority that you're right, this person's wrong, and it's so obvious, how can you not see it? And anyone who follows this person is a dodo, a moron, an idiot, someone whose opinion in life doesn't really matter as much as the rest of us. Right there. When you blitz the whole of society, not only are you giving this man free press because you're talking about him, you're not turning or changing the minds of people who support him. But for people on the fence who don't see your alternative as a good alternative for their own reasons, will pick him just to spite you. You don't understand that by giving this man free press every single day of the week in as many movies as you can stuff him, you're helping him become president just because he's getting free name recognition every single day. You're so smart. You're just so smart, and you're so morally superior. You don't even put two and two together that by saying this man's name every single day of the week, you are giving him that power. And to his supporters, making their supporters feel, oh my God, he must be a big deal because people won't shut up about him. And again, for people on the fence, people don't want to be talked down to. People don't want to be talked down to. So your elitist moral authority will get people to pick him just to spite you. Something to think about. There's a reason why filmmaking was very different years ago, where it had to be universal. You could talk about real things, but you had to change them just enough. You had to change them just enough so that they still spoke universally. But this seemingly coordinated, constant barrage of anti-Trumpness is really just free advertising for the guy that you don't want in power or respected by anybody. So, something to think about. There's this phrase, even bad press is good press. Not really true for everything, but sometimes it's very true. And I really felt this way. This was my concern during that first presidency. And then when he did win, and it didn't stop, it just kept getting worse and more extreme. This obsessive need to vilify this guy. You know what I mean? And I don't trust everything I read. I'm just like, there's something wrong here. You know, something's wrong here. And I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not going to claim to be well researched. I'm not trying to make that claim. I've already said I would not have voted for him. But it doesn't matter. You guys helped him win by being so aggressively against him and by talking down to the people that would support him. And there were people that would support him of every color of the rainbow. this thing that you've already judged me for when I started this conversation. You know you did. Don't tell me you didn't. I know you did. Everybody does. Everybody does. You decided who I was the minute you saw me. You don't care who I am. And that's the other problem. You actually really don't care about people. It's all a lie. It's all a sham. My problem with society is, the anti-Trumpness was so hard that Biden got elected. But let's look at this election, which people thought was supposed to be the savior of humanity. That whole George Floyd thing happened. We had the rise of BLM. And literally the whole internet went black to support Black Lives Matter. On that website, if you made donations and you actually looked at where they went, they didn't go to any particular neighborhood. They didn't go toward the NAACP. They went to Democratic campaign funds. How did Biden win this election? Well, maybe he had a very healthy donation from all of America. Because you see, when Biden was president, and when he was mentally incompetent for 70% of his presidency, and Kamala Harris was in charge in that time, Maui suspiciously burned. And it seemed like a coordinated effort to buy up all these homes from native Hawaiians so that rich people could have more giant estates to live in one of the most expensive states, the vacation state. I am Hawaiian, not a white guy born in Hawaii. I am native blood Hawaiian. And when Hawaii burned and FEMA was partying in hotels, who was allowing this to happen? Did any of these people get fired? Did anything happen? It was in the news for 2 weeks, and you know what? The internet didn't turn brown. The internet didn't turn into a bunch of hibiscus tiki pictures. The internet didn't really care. It's kind of the cost of being an indigenous person to this country. Nobody cares what happens to you because you're not one of the main two colors. You got to be one of the main two colors for someone to care. Even though people in California support illegal immigration, we know it's really to get your free labor or your cheap labor so we can have great agriculture. Kind of a backhanded compliment, if you ask me. We just want cheap nannies and cheap agriculture. And let me get back to these Trump supporters that, with all your moral authority, you know these people are dunces and idiots and fools. Oh, man, how could they be fooled by such a clearly wicked person? Have you seen the movie The Weather Underground? Have you heard of it? The Weather Underground is a documentary about how during the 70s, coal mines and the automotive industry, all of this work that Americans had was all moved out of the country so that companies could make profits. And when this happened, entire towns across America, including Detroit, entire towns across America went under. They had no support system. They had no infrastructure because their entire infrastructure depended on that work. Hardworking Americans lost their jobs to China and Mexico. And so when people say, they took our jobs, I think the mistake is, even on the local American level, the mistake is thinking that somehow those countries or those people reached out and literally took those jobs. Now, that is a mistake on the part of the people. The real truth is, these were American companies doing this for profit in America so that they could save that money, put it in their pocket, and who cares about all those little people from those small towns? So when Trump was appealing to these people, saying, I want to bring your automotive industry back, I want to bring your mining back, he really was appealing to people who have been underserved and thwarted by this whole American system in the first place, which includes a lot of white people. See, during BLM and the whole anti-racist movement, now the myth is that what we see in television is reality. White people have perfectly good lives. They don't suffer. They don't have problems like the rest of us. And because of this, again, more people who already grow up in poor towns with nothing in their pockets. I mean, I live in California. My mom is this color. She's also Native American and Mexican, but she's this color, right? She grew up poor on a farm and had to escape from the East Coast to the West Coast to get work. And I also have a friend who he's also this color, grew up poor in a broken home. And they say, oh, during the BLM anti-racism, oh, only the white people know about the banking systems and all this stuff. This kid didn't know about any of this stuff. And imagine that there's whole towns of these people who are disenfranchised and they're this color. America's not looking out for these people. Look at Flint, Michigan. The filmmaker Michael Moore, he started his entire career about Bowling for Columbine and talking about Flint, Michigan and the horrible conditions those people live in. Again, people of every color of the rainbow. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, of course, when someone comes around saying, hey, I'm going to give your town jobs back so that you don't have to scrap and suffer like this anymore, of course they're going to say yes and vote for this man. But when you, with your moral authority, say that that person is a racist moron, these are people who are also poor, just looking for work, just trying to make it. But because they're this color, you don't care, right? Because you're not supposed to care. It's not okay to care. You know, only if they're black and only a little bit if they're Mexican. Once they're over here, we don't care what happens to them. Just that they be over here. And here's another movie, Sound of Freedom. This came out during Trump's presidency. This movie came out in 2023, but it was made 5 years prior. If you don't know The Sound of Freedom, it's about the real life story of a CIA agent who's tasked with arresting Americans for committing crimes that would be illegal in America, but they're doing it in other countries. So this is actually, I think it's a great thing. And what he was specifically doing was hunting for pedophiles and trying to bring down pedophile rings and the whole human trafficking network involving the exploitation of children. And one of the things, and again, this is based on a real story. This guy was actually someone who Trump talked to that helped inform his border policy. And what the CIA knew and found out was that actually a lot of these undocumented kids being brought over the border illegally were being used for horrific exploitation, either for their organs or for, labor, or sadly for sexual exploitation. And I think it was something like 2 million kids at least. I might even be swinging under, it might be more than that. But essentially, America itself was the biggest customer of child exploitation, either material goods, or the children themselves. So, and he could not get this movie out. It took him 5 years. Jim Caviezel, Jesus, is in this movie, and it took 5 years to get anyone to release this movie. It had to be Angel Studios that did it, and I'm glad they did. Not only is it an excellent movie, it's literally James Bond for today's era, but it's about someone who's actually doing spy work for real and actually taking down real criminals who need to get taken down. And it's a very touching, sad movie, but it's about the real cost of having open borders, is that you don't know who's coming over that border. Now, I am not saying that we should not take people who are fleeing from horrendous situations or seeking asylum. You know what I mean? I do support that. But what I cannot ever say is good is letting over 2 million kids or more, we don't even know, again, undocumented, illegal, right? So we don't actually know. But the fact of the matter is that Americans are buying this. And let's not forget that Clinton was implicated in these Epstein files, right? This whole Epstein situation, which is part of why Hillary lost. Because of, even if she wasn't complicit, just that rumor alone tainted, amongst NAFTA and other things. They took our jobs, right? So even as crazy as Trump appears to be, there were good things that he did. And I'm going to circle, I'm going to talk about the presidential debate between Trump and Kamala. That debate starts off with a question about Kamala's policies and how when she and Biden were in office, they kept most of Trump's policies. Kamala didn't deny it. She didn't, you know what I mean? And she didn't really defend it necessarily, but she definitely didn't deny it. And to me, when that question was raised and that was the answer, and you're telling me that the woman with all the moral superiority kept the same policies of the man she says is a racist, evil, bigoted person, but you kept his policies because for some reason they were effective, and you're wondering again why people would support Trump. And as a Californian, knowing that during Kamala's first run for president, she was called out for, during her time as a DA, keeping innocent people in jail when the evidence was clear that they were innocent. And then again, supporting BLM, which we know it was not even a secret. It was not even a secret. You go on that website at the time, you will see your donations go to the Democratic Campaign Fund. It's not going to some neighborhood of people who need it. It's not improving the education. It's going to the campaign funds of Democrats. Okay? And she supported defund police. I understand there's a lot of bad cops out there who've done a lot of bad things. And I'm not trying to say that that hasn't happened. And I'm not trying to say racism isn't real. Believe me, I know. But from my own point of view, everyone who's ever seen my dad thought he was black. And I never once, in all my years of my dad driving me around as a kid, never once did I ever see him pulled over for that reason. Nor did he ever tell me, hey, remember, we're the darkies, so disrespect cops and remember to hate them. He never once said any of that kind of stuff. He always said, always have your ID on you, always drive properly. Don't drive like an idiot, or of course something's going to happen to you. That was always his attitude. My family was mixed race, but I grew up with the Hawaiian side. The darker side. I'm actually the pale one, or one of the pale ones, all right? But going to school, I went to schools that were largely Latin, that had a lot of immigrant students. And again, I would never want these people deported or anything. I knew they were good people. I don't know which ones were immigrants, but I don't know which ones might have been illegal or not, but I knew they were struggling with the English language, but they had classes and courses and all this stuff. But going to this largely Latin school, my high school was right between two gang territories. And I know that cops were present every single day the school was open, just to make sure kids didn't get attacked outside the school. We would have a liaison officer literally in the front entrance, always just to make sure nothing happened. And kids were stabbed inside that school. And kids were stabbed blocks away from the school where the cops were not at. So I know that the cop presence there was not to oppress my fellow Latin students. But when you defund the police and they're not there, that to me is a message that let the brownies kill each other. That is to me what you're saying. Let them kill each other. Let people commit crimes and get away for it. That to me is what you invite. And I cannot support someone who supported those things, especially when my own mom, who has been through horrific things that this skin color did not save her from. She's been through all manner of terrible things in her life that the color of her skin didn't save her from. She herself became a police dispatcher, and a very well respected, decorated one, because she always committed to getting the right information and looking out for people. And the amount, of course, she can't really talk about the things she sees, but the amount of things that she has heard and had the phone calls for and had to witness, the video surveillance of, the amount of horrendous crimes that people commit against each other on a daily basis. If there was no police presence, just think about what happened to COVID. Just think about what happened during COVID and the rise of domestic violence. The amount of awful things that police officers have to deal with on a daily basis that you, as a regular citizen, never have to deal with. Because you don't want to. That's the dirty job. That's the scary job. You might die during that job. People hate cops. They might kill you during that job. And yet, again, with all the LA fires that just happened, no one ever said F the firefighters, but who do you call when you need a firefighter and when you need an ambulance? When you call 911, you get a police dispatcher. If that person isn't there and doesn't do their job, guess who's not coming to put out your fire? We have a lot to owe to the police of this country. Like the custodians who we rub our shit all over bathrooms because it's just someone else's job to clean it up. That's what the cops do with all of our human terror. That people are so horrifically barbaric toward each other when they think no one is looking. Literally just yesterday, I saw a video from this YouTuber Seizure Girl, apparently a former human trafficking victim, was talking about this art installation. Sometimes people like Shia LaBeouf. Sometimes these artists like to do a thing where they stand still or they sit still and they let people do whatever they want to them. And that literally people did such shameful things to this person, and that it almost became life threatening, and before she stopped. I mean, what does that tell you about human nature and the human behavior as we are? Humans are horribly savage. So, you want me to vote blue when I know that blue don't care about you? They say they do. They used to. I felt like they genuinely used to. But I have stopped believing that since the whole BLM movement. I think a movement that started off with very good messages and had, I think, a very positive effect. I was really happy to see more diversity. It did seem like since the Bush years, there was a stark drop in diversity in media. I don't know if Bush had anything to do with it, but it was very strange to me. Because I grew up in the 90s and also on 80s stuff where even if it was white writers, and sorry if they totally misrepresented you, but I grew up with such a variety of representation in the 80s and 90s television that it did seem like a stark difference. But it was wonderful that one of the effects of BLM was getting that diversity back in media. But, people are still people. People are still people. And we're just animals with a superior attitude about ourselves. What is a natural instinct of I need to survive and be on top? It becomes the superior ego of, well, I'm the best, or I matter more than you, or I'm smarter than you. And it's disgusting, it's terrible, and it's not right. But for me to sit and watch California over the last decade, to watch even my own city, my home city, San Francisco, that when I grew up, I could walk across that city safe and sound, not worrying about anything. But if I visit it now, it's covered in junkies and covered in tents, the state capitol covered in tents. That the former mayor of San Francisco, now the governor, who didn't take care of homelessness when he was mayor, only cleaned up the city because the president of China visited. The same guy who told everyone to not party and wear masks, 5 minutes later caught partying in a big party, not wearing masks. The same guy who said, well, of course, you gotta clean up your house if you have a guest coming over. When the president of China came over, the same guy who joined the rest of the Democrats in saying, I wish Obama led like he campaigned, saying the same thing that other people say, this party-based craving to fit in the status quo. Because obviously the people aren't voting for this. So he's playing by some playbook. And I met Gavin Newsom. He seemed like he was a cool guy. I shook his hand. But what I'm saying is, look, there is some utter blatant hypocrisy going on with what is called the Democratic Party. And I cannot vote for that. For people to say, oh, things are crazy now. Again, during the Biden administration, Hawaii burned. People burned in mysterious and strange ways. And FEMA was partying in a hotel. But that's not crazy to you. It's not crazy when it happens to a Hawaiian, right? Don't matter. Don't you see this blatant hypocrisy going on here? And it's why I tend to vote independently, because I don't want to vote for a party that's so heavily funded that you can't trust where that money came from. But all you people, and I mean all of you, whether you're red or blue, you're all just like a sports team. Well, I can't support that team, so I have to support this team. All of you keep falling for the same trick every single election. And you wonder why, even when Democrats and president, people are dying left and right of fentanyl. I've had 2 friends die of fentanyl. And if we know that, again, going back to this whole border issue, if we know that China's making it and it's crossing the Mexican border, again, we got human trafficking, we got drug trafficking, killing Americans left and right, and abusing Americans, paying to abuse immigrant children or take their organs. We know that the CIA knows about this and it was combating it and knew that the best way to combat it was with a strong border. Not just to keep out people seeking asylum, but to stop criminals from abusing the system. We know these things, but it's okay to let them happen. Let it happen. Because I must be the most compassionate human there is. That's all that matters, is that I stood on the side of the poor and the meek, seeking asylum in the greatest country in the world. Okay, so it's okay to abuse those kids, though? Is that what you're saying? It's okay for my neighbors and my friends to die of fentanyl? That's okay with you? I don't understand. I don't understand the logic of that. Because I do have a friend who was posting this stuff about how, hey, it was illegal for Anne Frank to be alive too. And I said what I said about the kids. I said, are you okay with 2 million kids being abused and picked apart so that you can say that everyone crossing the border illegally is Anne Frank? Is that okay with you? No response. No response. And this is my problem. Again, with all your moral authority, if someone asks you a question like that, I am trying to save the world because that is what I am here for. Well, then go save it then. Look, this is not an endorsement of Trump. Again, people who are heavily funded, I don't trust. Where's that money coming from? Who is the interest? These things should be known. Like a NASCAR driver, we should know who's paying for that car. But we don't know when they're dressed up in business suits. So I vote independent. I refuse to play your party politics because I see how it works out for the people every single day of the week. I mean, California is just drowning. You know? I'm tired of seeing it. Tired of seeing hypocrisy on such a grand scale. And I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. You know, I'm a messed up person. I'm just trying to be a good person every single day. I'm trying. But it's hard. It's hard to sit here and be a person with other people. I even have extreme social anxiety, and I didn't even realize it until last year that I have a really extreme social anxiety when I'm around people. That's why you look at my room, this nerd den, this bat cave of nerdism. Because I hide away from people. I squirrel away from people because I used to have friends. And when I was in the worst time of my life, these friends of all the colors of the rainbow, they didn't care about me. They let me suffer, even though I ran out and helped them whenever they asked for it. I did whatever it is they asked and supported them because I thought they were friends and truly cared. And when I was in trouble, when it was my birthday, they all decided to 86 me at the same time. So I no longer have the illusion that people are wholly good. All these people, by the way, blatant Democrats, right? The compassionate people of the misrepresented, the underdog. I help you out and you 86 me when I'm in trouble. Not very good quality of character. To be fair, I was a bit of a handful, and I realize that now. I'm not a perfect person. I don't claim to be a perfect person. I've had a wild temper. I've had internet addiction. It's terrible. But I try every day to be a little bit better. I try to support people still, even though I went out of my way for people who didn't go out of their way for me. I still try to be a good person. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters, being a good person. And I realize I don't have moral authority over anybody. That was a mistake that I made when I was friends with them. I thought I had moral authority. I thought I had something to say. And now here I am saying the same thing, but no longer trying to say it as if I'm better. I'm not better than anybody. I'm not smarter. Well, I'm smarter than some people. But I'm not better than anybody. I'm just a person like the rest of you. But one thing I do know is every time I've screwed up, I've tried to own up to it. If it really was my fault, I apologized and I tried to correct myself. And I see time and time again, like during these elections, seeing people get called out for the mistakes. And instead of owning up to it, they change the subject. I see that as a very weak sign of leadership. Like, you are not a leader if you cannot own up to your own decisions. If you're not willing to change, then what good are you as a leader? You are the epitome of the person who should make change if it's necessary. So I don't know, I don't trust the media anymore. I definitely don't trust social media. But again, I'm not endorsing Trump, but I'm just trying to say, look, people who supported him were coming from a very honest place. And again, his supporters were every color of the rainbow too. But all in these movies, you only see white people. You only see white people who look kind of dumb and kind of lost, like little dodos. But that's not the truth. Well, at least it's not the whole truth. So you're trying to convince people, you're trying to tell people what's right and what's wrong, and you can't even tell the whole truth to win your argument. You have to tell a half truth to make your argument. And that is why you fail. We got the internet now. Everything we do is exposed. So, again, nobody's perfect. And, my opinion is, if you want better cops, you better go become one. If you want to change the country, become a lawyer. Learn the law. Figure out how this country actually works. How does the paperwork work? Stop trying to scam society. Stop trying to tell everyone that you're the best or that you're better or somehow you're the biggest victim on the planet. This ain't North Korea. I mean, good God. You know what I mean? Jeez. So, yeah. This is why nothing I'm saying here, I don't expect anyone to agree with. I don't expect you to think that I'm smart or that I'm right. Frankly, I've been saying these things for a long time. No one cares. No one wants to listen to it. No one wants to be disagreed with. Everyone wants to be agreed with. Let me say my piece and I'm right. And you can't disagree with me. I don't want to hear it. So as long as we act like that in society, we can't ever possibly improve. You have to be willing to concede when you're wrong, or when there's a good point against your point. You see, I think we've all been mistaken growing up with our education to believe that we have to be right, that we're only good if we're right, that failure is bad. Another thing, and again, this is not a support of Trump, but another one of people's arguments against him. Well, he failed. He failed all these businesses. Well, how does one succeed? You know, when you watch all these self-help videos and you watch all these videos about people who became successful, what did they always say? I had to fail 499 times in order to figure out how to win. I had to fail. If I didn't fail, I would not have learned how to win. And I'm not saying this in support of Trump. I'm saying if you feel that his victory is somehow a failure on the part of America, then you've got to learn better how to win. And what I am saying, what this video is trying to convey, is that the only way you're going to win is to stop being dogmatic, to stop being like me 8 years ago. Stop trying to have the greatest moral authority where you are not allowed to be disagreed with. Learn to listen. Learn to become friends with the people that you think are your enemies. If you wish to be a leader, there's nothing more key in your leadership than that. When I worked at a popular retail store, there were people who were blatantly rude to me or rude with me. But I had to learn to suck it up, agree to disagree, to get the job done. And if you can't do that, if we can't do that as a society, then there is no hope for the future. If you don't learn anything from the last 12 years, from the last 20 years, remember, all of our woes started with 9/11 and this horrible war that cost us our schools, that cost us our souls. This all started back then. This intense, dogmatic belief in one party or another, as if we aren't all technically on the same team. Whoever wins, we all have to go through whatever gets done. If you want this country to be a better place, it's time to start listening to the people that you think are against you. Hear them out. What are their points? Can you compromise? Can you find some way to compromise? And be respectful to each other. Put down the club. Stop trying to beat people over the head with how right you are. And just be a person that speaks and listens to other people. Because listening is the ultimate superpower. The person who listens can hear the train coming and will not step on the tracks, or at least will get the hell off those tracks before it comes. So let's start listening to each other and stop playing party politics. Every argument to maintain the status quo has kept us in the same loop for the last 25 years. If this election is a failure, then we must learn. What did we do wrong that got us here? And remember that the people who voted for this president had, they felt, very good reasons for doing so. And maybe it's time to stop telling them that they're idiot racists and actually speak to them, ask them a genuine question. Why do you feel this way? What was promised to you, or what did you benefit from in the previous election that makes you feel this way? Just ask. And again, you do not have to agree, but at least take the time to see their side of things. Because if you don't, then you are just going to repeat all of this again. Because if you're not being dogmatic because you actually believe, you know that your side is messed up. You know it. You know it's got flaws and issues and it needs to be worked on. And yet you will not concede one bit that any of these things are happening. Or it doesn't matter in the face of some other awful tyranny. And yet it does. If we want this place to be a better place for all of us to live, we've got to start talking to each other and listening. Because at this point, I don't really believe in red or blue. I think both sides have become so extremely dogmatic that it's not actually good for this country. I vote independent for a reason. And you know what? Independent never wins. And I am someone who fails all the time. Even my own YouTube channel for 8 years is a miserable failure. But I'm learning. I'm trying to get better. I was a failure as a filmmaker too. When I was in high school, I was doing great. One of my documentaries got showed at Lucasfilm. It was amazing. My work in high school got me a scholarship to college. So I succeeded upward. But then, post-college, I really lost my confidence and I became part of this horrible cycle of failure. But I failed because I was afraid. I failed because I didn't want to listen to people. And I failed because I wasn't willing to try new things. To really try something that I wasn't comfortable with so I could move to the next step. And I'm still afraid. I'm still afraid. And right now I'm unemployed. So I have the time to make this stupid video. But all I know is that, like I said, I had a group of friends that 86'd me, right? But I can't totally blame them because I know that I was an emotional handful. I was going through stuff. Some of the way I was dealing with that was not fair for them. But what I felt was deeply unfair to me was that they knew the things I was going through. And they still tossed me to the side, even though I came to their every becking call. So I'll never be tricked by people again to believing that just because you say that you're this big victim doesn't mean that you always are. Because if you keep acting like a victim and then you mistreat the person that helps you, then you're not a victim anymore. You're something else. So that's what I think about people. I'll never be tricked by them again. And but it hasn't stopped me from trying to be a good person. And because of the lessons I learned, I've really worked on myself to become just a better human being to other people. Be a mensch, as they say. And now, more often than not, when I meet people, they tend to be okay around me because I've learned how to talk, how to listen, and to not let my opinion be the most important thing in the room. That's always bad. Just let people say things that I don't agree with and let it be, because it's okay. It's okay to disagree. That's fine. We're still people. And if there's something that's a hot topic that we really shouldn't talk about, like politics, then let's not talk about it. Let's just be people. You go your way and think what you think, and I'll go my way and think what I think. You know? But anyway, that's my thoughts on all of this. And, I hope I didn't offend anybody. I really hope I didn't. I wasn't trying to. But I think it's real important people start leveling up. This country needs a better class of citizen. That is for sure. And we can all achieve that. If we want to be this country of tolerance, it's time to start tolerating the correct things. Public discourse, conversation. Otherwise, all that dogma just keeps us right where we are. That's what I got to say. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. And, again, feel free to disagree with me in the comments. Let me remind you, none of this was an endorsement of any political party. Honestly, I'm very against all of it. But all that being said, please be respectful in your comments, but of course, feel free to disagree with me. And, you want to tell me, hey, Trump's the worst thing on earth, I'm not going to disagree with you. Okay, I don't know what the hell he's doing in this term. But other than that, I can't possibly listen to this belief that somehow the other side was playing for the rest of us. I don't believe that for a second. There's just been too much hypocrisy to buy any of that bullshit. So, excuse me for my language. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Thank you.